Back in May, I published an 8-part interview series going behind the scenes with the Navattic growth team. We tried to shine a light on things that are typically unspoken in the growth space. And as a reminder, you can view that entire series by searching for Behind the Scenes under the Delivering Value podcast umbrella. Since that series launched, the Navattic growth team launched a new freemium plan. So I invited Natalie, their head of growth, to come back on the show and talk to us about it. We explored why freemium and why now, how this fit into their current strategy and risk appetite. But the good stuff was really hearing about how Natalie's feeling about the freemium launch. Let's go ahead and jump right in and hear what Natalie had to say.
Last week, I'd say, was a mix of so much excitement, also just so many nice things people posted, which was awesome, so much promotion. We got more than 2x number of leads we usually get. Like, initial launch numbers went great. On the flip side, immediate imposter syndrome, because you're never going to launch the perfect freemium motion. And even though we did beta, sneaky test it, only showed a certain percent of our website, so many things still broke last week. We still had internal routing issues and even like a bug we didn't notice come up. And so I think when you get a lot of promotion and you luckily like the promotion goes well, there's the flip side of, oh no, this better be good because we just blasted the internet about it. And people, I think sometimes when people see a lot of promotion, their standards are a little higher, rightfully so.
I feel like if you have a lot of attention, you're going to find bugs, and avoiding them is impossible. So you might as well just find them quick and fix them fast. And I feel like that's par for the course. Do you have a lot of chips in this hand? Like for you personally in your career at Navattic, like is this one of those things that you kind of had to pound the table and push a little bit?
I'd say since I started at Navattic, I have wanted a freemium motion. It was sort of a group recognition. Also, Raman, the other member of my team, was the one who made Starter happen. So by no means do I want to make it seem like Starter was all me. But I think I was the first to introduce it to. And also still, we are a very inbound-based company. So like not only is it, yes, do I want this idea to work, but if it doesn't work, my number one goal is pipeline. And I just threw that out the window. So definitely a lot of chips in this idea.
I want to learn just like a teeny bit about like why freemium, and then I want to explore it a little bit more in depth. So can you just share for the listeners, like why did y'all decide to go freemium? Why now? And why freemium versus free trial?
So why freemium? Why now? I think throughout, again, like since I started Navattic, it is just a tool that makes sense for freemium. It is a wide user base with a lot of different use cases. It's pretty easy to see value. It's relatively no code and easy to implement. So from the beginning, I think our whole company agreed that freemium is a go-to-market strategy or some sort of PLG that could make sense for interactive demos and for our product. I think the more important question is why now? Partly at the beginning was, I actually am very happy we started sales-led. A lot more one-on-one discussions with our customers. Also, our whole tool is like capturing other software. Sometimes that doesn't work perfectly out of the box. So the early days, getting to work closely with the customer, having any fixes we could solve. Now we're at a point where obviously the product's a lot better 2 years in, and we've just captured a lot more. So it works out of the box. But really what it was we were at a lot of conferences. And this is why bring your founders and CEO to conferences that are big and important, because they're going to hear these things too. And we just kept hearing marketers say, you know, I want to try interactive demos. I want to try Navattic, but I just don't have budget right now. And honestly, I'm scared to ask for budget, or I'm scared to ask for anything without proving it out first. And we heard a few people just saying that over and over. And it was like, okay, in the new economy that we're in, where it is less money than ever, it's not just like people can buy as many tools as we want. We got to give them a way to prove it out first, or else we're ultimately just going to lose the market.
So that makes sense to me conceptually. And so why free plan versus free trial? Because that could be the other way. You could have accomplished a similar goal, right? Let folks use it before they have to pull out their credit card in a more limited way. What was the conversation there like?
It's funny because there were so many conversations around obviously going PLG. This was one of the easiest, actually. Like we all kind of universally just kind of knew about freemium, but to give legit reasons of why we all knew. One is to go back to the point everyone told us they need to prove value first. We've just seen with our customers that even if you build a demo in 20 minutes, you still need internal approval to get other stakeholders on board. Then you need the website team on board. Then you need to decide where you're going to put the demo. Like it just takes a little bit. And we didn't want people to fear signing up and creating a demo because like, what if I can't get this on my website in 14 days and I won't have a chance to try it? So part of it was just making sure people could see value. Another part is the growth loop of demos. That was also a reason why PLG made sense for us. The more demos out in the world, the more people have a good experience with them, the more people want demos. So freemium also just like unlocks a lot more people putting websites on their demo. or putting demos on their website. Oh
It's
my
all
God.
good. It's Monday. There's no judgment.
That's how you can tell last week was a exciting but a little chaotic week. But I think for us, and we know most of these freemium users aren't going to convert, but they still provide us a lot of value just by publishing their demos.
I mean, it's super smart, right? The growth loop makes a ton of sense. You could pay to have Navattic ads all over the internet, or you could publish a free plan for a fraction of the cost and let your customers basically unlock this growth loop for you. Instead of having to pay for it, they can actually use your product, see value from your product, and expose your product to all of their customers, which could become your customers down the road. It's almost the exact same playbook that we ran at Wistia that scaled a very large freemium user base. So I love it for y'all. Internally, was it hard to get to this point? Like, was it hard to get the buy-in internally to actually go free and to put another CTA on the website and diversify from just driving MQLs and demo requests to now having this free user lead database potentially?
So yes and no, which this is why I'm a really big idea of constantly soft pitch your ideas. I think we have this sometimes at companies where like, okay, I introduced an idea to my CEO and he said no. And then you're like, oh, okay, I guess it's just a bad idea. But so often it's just like, is this a good idea at this time? So I had been soft pitching the idea of PLG, like literally every time we had a big leadership conversation, anytime the concept of how do we grow more? How do we make sure we widen up our lead base? Like I was constantly pitching the concept of PLG, but I never pushed it. It was like, this is an option. It might not be right now, but it's an option. So by the time after coming back from those conferences, and again, it was like multiple people of the leadership team hearing this feedback, it was just like, I think we need to try it. But one thing that also really helped make it more palatable to everyone is we did do it in an experimental way. That's why we did it 7 months leading up to it. We actually started with a $50 a month plan, never with the intention of keeping that plan, just because we knew if you paid a little bit of money, you're probably more likely to like try it out. And then we could see, okay, did those users convert? Did they have a good experience? So it was also a lot easier to pitch when we said, we're going to experiment with a $50 a month plan, and we're not going to promote this concept of going freemium until we have run it for a while, have faith in it, have seen good conversion numbers. So that's why it was 7 months in the making, which crazy it's been 7 months, but I really would recommend that to anyone.
Soft pitching. I love that. I don't think I've ever heard it explained that way, but I think a lot of people understand conceptually that if you pitch something one time, it generally doesn't get approved and resourced, and that it takes a long time. And I think a lot of people struggle with finding the balance of repetition on something that they believe in, but not overstepping and having it be annoying or having them viewed as like a detractor or something like that. And it sounds like you've danced that line well to get to this point.
And I think too, acknowledging when it might not be the right time, but just it's an option. Like if there's a problem, presenting it as a solution, but saying like maybe now's not the right time. Is there a point that we'd feel more comfortable? What are we looking for? Because it definitely can be annoying if you're just pitching the same idea and people are saying no. So that's why I also wouldn't do it too much. I would do it at like the big leadership conversations when we talk about what's potentially next for next year, and also acknowledging that it's not something easy and it would take a lot of time and resources. So again, it's like, when will we have those time and resources?
And so what changed recently, right? So you've been soft pitching this for 7 months. We're at this point today. So what changed? Was it a change in strategy, a change in resources, a change in risk appetite, funding, or something not on my list? I'm just spitballing here.
I think risk appetite because we tested it. So first, I'm going to get these numbers wrong, but let's say 3 to 4 months was when we tried the $50 a month plan. Then over the summer, we confirmed like people could build demos, self-serve. That was really what we were trying to validate. It's like, can self-serve users see success? When we validated that, then we switched to the freemium offering and started just like slowly upping the amount of our traffic that could see the freemium offering. So really for the first 2 weeks, it was like 10% of our traffic, very small. But again, validating those users had success, and then working with sales, like this was so important of figuring out what is that PLG sales process. And we're still figuring that out, but at least giving them some comfort and reps before the live launch. And I'm so happy I did that, because last week when it was getting flooded, I'm very happy that wasn't their first time being exposed to PLG leads.
I want to dig into sales specifically a little bit, because I think at least the outward perception is that sales is the most nervous or the most skittish or potentially the least on board. And for good reason, right? I'm not picking on sales reps. This is their whole job, is to take leads and to close them, and they get comped on it and they get judged on it. And this is their role in the org. It's an important one. Was any of that true though at your org? Was there nervousness and skittishness from that team specifically?
100%. And actually, there was 2 weeks where I wasn't helping because I was starting getting nervous about the MQL numbers. And me and my head of sales actually talked about this. And we were both saying, like, during that time, we both knew we just had to our best ability, like, put on a good face and just keep moving forward. I think that's sometimes when there's roadblocks, weeks that go wrong, or like when you're starting getting doubts, we just had to keep reminding, like, put in a good face, get excited, believe in the long-term mission. I failed at that a few times and had a few little freakouts, but luckily kept them as contained as possible. But to sales defense, you're also working with users who inherently don't want to talk to you. So much of our conversations internally is how can you get PLG leads to engage you without making them jump on a demo, which is what you're used to and the channel you're most familiar with. So it's hard. Like, I can't blame sales for pushing back because you're like, wait, you want me to sell someone who inherently doesn't want to talk to me?
And so to double click on that a teeny bit more, were there specific meetings that you had to have to like detangle how this might impact your lead numbers or pipeline numbers? Did you have to model out the future, or is that kind of what the test rollout plan was for?
Partly what the test was for, because I actually, every single quarter, I predict pipeline. Like, I get the quota number from Ben, our head of sales, and then I do forward and backwards math. So I do backwards math is figure out, okay, ideally, how many MQLs and ops do we need based off this number you given me? And then I also like to forecast based off of what we got last quarter, based off of what I'm marketing planning I'm having this quarter. What do I think we're going to get? And ideally, those numbers are pretty similar. Sometimes they're not. And this one was really hard because I had to use some PLG numbers to be like, okay, what is our website conversion rate to signups? How many of those convert and turn into ops? Because you have like now self-serve revenue and then some that are converting into ops. And so I definitely had to do modeling, and that it helped when I modeled it out and showed, okay, yes, we're going to get less MQLs, but the volume of PQLs is so much higher. Like, that's what I also keep reminding myself. It's a volume game. They convert much lower, obviously, but I'm predicting we're going to get a lot more also than we did during our test period when we didn't promote it at all.
And on the topic of modeling, the other team that I feel like can get impacted massively is on customer support. Because now all of a sudden you have all these other people that are potentially writing in with help center questions or getting stuck. And I don't know the exact support mechanisms that you have, if you do live chat or if it's all ticket based, but what was the conversation like with that team? And was there any modeling for how they were going to support these future free users?
Yeah, that's again, where testing it out really helped because that was one thing we were really scared about. And then we realized the volume really was not that bad. So we haven't had to fully model it out yet because it's been manageable, but now we at least have like numbers we can go off of and know our bandwidth around it. That's also where sales comes in, where I was so impressed with my sales team about this, and like huge kudos again to them for being so down for this. But they also recognize that the number one way a free user is going to talk to them is if it's support related. So we actually sometimes have sales jump in and help answer questions or act a little bit more like a support rep, which I know is not possible for all sales teams. I will say, like, I think our sales team is very knowledgeable about the product. We actually build demos everyone internally, but that's also helping with support volume.
That's so funny. At Wistia, we didn't have sales when I first started working there. It was called customer success, but there was a mix of helping existing customers and helping free users and mostly ticket based. And the sales team was born because there were some people that wrote in and had questions that were inherently salesy. They'd write in, they'd be like, oh, do you have any high volume discounts? I don't think I'm like the rest of your customers. Or they'd write in and they'd be like, hey, I'm a free user and I think I want to buy, but I have some specific questions. Could somebody call me? Or, hey, I'd love a guided demo for this part of the product because I'm just a little confused. I have a really specific use case. And there was a couple people on the support team that were like, oh yeah, I'll be the person that helps with that. And we were like, well, it's sort of like a customer sales type of thing, but we didn't want to call it sales because we didn't want to have a sales team. And eventually that morphed into the sales team. So that's cool. And I think that's a cool lesson for other companies that are either thinking about going freemium or maybe have gone freemium and are trying to figure out how to connect the dots. So many of those sales combos come in through customer success. And that's cool that you're already seeing it.
I was also talking to another PLG leader about this who said the same thing of like, we could only get people to respond to us if it's somewhat support based. And again, it just makes sense. If you're doing something self-serve, you're doing it because you don't want to talk to sales necessarily. But if you have trust that that person's actually going to help you answer your questions, I think you're more likely to talk to them. It's like, hey, this person isn't just going to try to sell me the entire time. They're actually going to have my best interest at heart and they understand the product. In a weird way, if you're a very active PLG user, you might know more about the product than a sales rep might if they are not as product educated. So I think there's always that fear in PLG of like, I don't want to talk to someone who hasn't been in and out of the product as much as I have the last week.
And if we fast forward, you just went live with Freemium. I say we as if like I had anything to do with it other than cheering you on. So you just went live with Freemium. You're making a big bet here. You've got some confidence that it's going to be the right bet. But if we could fast forward into the future, when and how are you going to determine if this was the right call or if you're going to pivot and try something else?
I think short-term future, so like a quarter in, it's really nice we did those pipeline projections because all I need to see is did the PQL amount cover the MQLs and did we still hit our quota goals? Because ultimately, if we're still hitting our quota goals, sales and the rest of the leadership team doesn't care as much about how we got there. So that's step number one. I think long term, let's say like a year out, we're really more banking on the word of mouth growth loop of this. Like we're not seeing this as a huge revenue channel. We still predict most of our revenue will come from sales, but we're seeing this as a way to get a lot more eyes on interactive demos. So we measure word of mouth leads and ultimately seeing how many more word of mouth leads we get because we have a freemium offering. That's another thing. I think this is a low key, like sneaky thing you don't think about with freemium. People are so much more likely to recommend you if it's free versus if it's paid. We already got a bunch of like people resharing our post last week, people who are consultants and PLG experts being like, oh, Navattic's now free, try it out. Because you could tell before, no one wants to tell their client to go buy something when they're already spending money on them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I would expect with other companies that I support as a coach or as an advisor, at some point, their number one channel becomes word of mouth. And so I would expect that as you continue on this journey, that will grow into being one of the largest channels. Any early indicate? Well, it sounds like there already are some early indicators.
Yeah. Or so far, it's already generally like our second or third highest lead channel. And for starter, because we break it out by starter versus our MQLs. And then also, even just like last week, the highest lead channel when we did a lot of LinkedIn promotion was LinkedIn, which I feel like feeds into the word of mouth as social. So that was pretty cool to see as well.
That is cool. And for anyone listening to this that's thinking about going freemium, they work at a company that is traditionally, sales led, whether it's an inbound or an outbound motion, but that wants to go freemium. Any advice for them being on this side of things?
This is going to be really frustrating and probably not what they want to hear, but you do really need a sales team and sales leader that's bought in. I think that's to my point of soft pitch it and figure out when it's the right time because, hey, you don't know, leadership could also change at your company. If this leader's really against it, it might be hard because getting the sales team on board and excited was so much kudos to our sales team for one doing it and then sales leadership for promoting and being part of it. I think it would have been really hard to do this separately. So if you are traditionally sales led, not saying everyone has to be 100% convinced, but like figure out what's going to help them get more convinced, right? Is it testing it out? Is it the $50 a month plan that we try? I think we have this habit of trying to convince someone of something. We're just like, oh, if we discuss this enough, I'll convince them that we should go PLG. That's really hard to do. It's a lot easier to give them a little bit of data and show them it worked and figure out a compromise of like, what are we both comfortable with to test it out?
And is there anything else that you wish you knew going back in time?
No matter how much you prep for 7 months, it's not going to be perfect. Your PLG experience is not going to be 100% perfect on launch. There are going to be a lot of people who still don't activate or do anything or are going to discover bugs. That is part of the process. So I guess just don't be too hard on yourself if you're launching a PLG motion. It takes a while. Like all the best PLG companies I've talked to, they're like, yeah, it took me like a year to get to where it is now. So that's what I keep telling myself.
Yeah. And so what are one or two things that you're looking at that you might want to iterate to help you get to that future state that you'll be really proud of, that'll be really high performing?
So this was some good advice from you, actually, Andrew. I think one is like constantly thinking about, is the product, does it explain itself? That's kind of inherent that we know what everything means and how everything connects. But going through as a free user, like very basic concept we realize are not obvious to our users. So how can we make that more obvious? And then just the full like onboarding experience, how can we make it sort of similar, as seamless as possible from one step to the next of what you're supposed to do next? I think we're very reliant on sometimes having a person guiding you through what that next step is. And you realize how unobvious some of those steps are when you are going through and watching those recordings.
There's nothing more humbling than watching strangers go through your product that aren't familiar with it in the way that you are and seeing them get frustrated and stuck at the most obvious of steps. At least for me in my career, it's been the most humbling.
100%. Every time I think I know something, I go and watch some recordings and I'm like, oh, yep, that's not obvious. Or like, oh, that's why they rage clipped, or that's why they're not doing this thing, but doing this thing. And that in user interviews too. And a little hack that we've done is we offer people to do an interview, but also an async option. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback on that because some of our free users are not US based, so they can't talk to us during normal work hours. So we give them both options. And that really opened up how many user interviews we were getting.
Oh, that's cool. So you could get feedback from people live or feedback from people async. You have a little questionnaire set up with some specific questions.
Exactly. Just questions that's like, send us back a Loom video.
Oh, I love that. And you've gotten a few of those back?
Yeah, more than the live ones.
Oh, that's smart. Cool. Anything else that you want to share to folks as we're thinking about freemium and going 0 to 1 here, and as you kind of transition going to 1 to 2? Anything else you want to share before we part?
I think just if you want to talk about it, if you're in a similar boat, if you're figuring it out, we're still figuring it out. We're not 100% perfect. Happy to chat.
It's good words to part with. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's got it figured out. All we can do is collect information and figure out the next thing to make a little bit better.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, thanks for coming on and sharing a little bit about the launch.
Thanks for having me.